welcome to this week's video. Now, last night I went to see Greg Koch playing with the Marshall Koch Trio, and I enjoyed it so much I decided to do a review on it. Now, it must have been a good gig, as I got home and I started playing inspired by what I'd seen. And as I was noodling away earlier, I thought I'd stick the camera on and film a bit of me noodling away. But by the time I'd thought of doing it, my fingers are really... Oh, actually, I've got proper blisters here from doing the kind of hybrid picking, which I do a little bit, because I was doing it non-stop for about an hour. I got blisters, so I'm not doing any in this video because I had big blisters by the time I turned the camera on. But anyway, just noodling away. I hadn't worked anything out, but I was just a bit of a Greg Koch inspired business on my Telecaster, as that's what he was playing mainly, into my Marshall amp, which is down here straight in, as he was using a Marshall style amp. So here we are, just this to kick off with. Just got in the car and I'm off to see Greg Koch. I'll find that out, won't I? It can't be Koch. Must be Koch. Mind you, does that mean the same thing in American? Anyway, I'm going to see him. Very excited about this. And I'm meeting up with another guitarist from Brighton called Tony, who I've spoken to on messages loads and loads of times. And I did meet very briefly many years ago. He's played in my wife's band and he decks for me in another band that I do, and we know loads of different people in common, but we've never spent any time together, so this is really nice. We're going to meet him as well, spend some time with him. He actually went on Monday to see Greg Koch. He saw him in Brighton. He said he was so good he wanted to see him again, at which point I was sold, and we're going to the Q&A, the nerdy bit beforehand, so we can which Tony did on Monday as well. He said it was brilliant. There were only a few of them there, so very much looking forward to this. Go and have a look at, tread on some of his pedals and strum his guitars. Well, probably not. Anyway, very much looking forward to it. So it's about an hour's drive. So not only did I go to the show, but there was a Q&A, special nerdy ask questions about his gear and anything session that you could pay to go to for an hour before the show, which of course I paid to go to, being a guitar nerd. And I'm really glad I did, because it was really entertaining. I mean, you know what, if you've seen any of his videos, you know what a funny guy he is and a brilliant communicator. But he had some great stories about when he met Danny Gatton, when he met Jeff Beck, and he told us stories of how he the work he used to do for Fender, and how he did the Wildwood Guitars thing, and how he'd written the Hal Leonard book, which actually I've just remembered I've got. Hang on. Yes, I have got it. And he spoke about this, and I'd forgotten, but I did notice. But he helped them rewrite this, and this, I think this is like the most popular, the best-selling guitar tutor book of all time or something. So yeah, brilliant. He did do a little bit of playing at the Q&A session, because someone asked a question about the new S-style. I don't know why I say S-style. Why do you just say it's a Strat? It's pretty obvious what it is. The S-style guitar that he's got out, which is the Gristle ST, which it's a Strat shape. But like all his guitars, apparently they're all made slightly bigger, because he wants them to look in proportion with his 6'7" frame. Here's a photo of me standing next to him. This may look like I'm much smaller than him, but actually I'm miles further away from the camera. Well, I wish that was true. He's about a foot taller than me. Anyway, so he played a bit on his new S-style guitar, which has got that kind of raised bit in the middle, bit like a, is it a Firebird? It's got that, hasn't it, the Gibson guitar. And it's got Fishman specially voiced pickups, and it's got a booster on one of the tone controls that you push, and it's got a blend knob and stuff, and a Wilkinson bridge. Very nice sounding guitar, and here's just a little clip of him playing it on his own in the question answer bit. Well, while we're on the subject of the gear, let's carry on talking about the guitars. For the majority of the show, he played his Telecaster style Reverend signature guitar, which is called the Gristle Master, and that's got a similar sort of raised bit in the middle, and it's slightly bigger than a standard Tele. Now, I don't really like filming when I go to these gigs because I'd like to just watch it, but luckily I had a front row seat, so I could just hold the camera there whilst watching properly. So the video might go slightly askew because I wasn't actually looking at the screen. I hate watching it through the screen, but I wanted to do a little bit of video because I wanted to do a review on it, and I thought if I don't do any footage, it's going to be a pretty boring review. So here's a little bit of footage, and I'm really pleased that I just happened to have the camera on where this solo was on. I was only going to get the beginning of the solo, but it was so good I left it running. So I'm going to play you most of this solo, as it was absolutely brilliant, and this was pretty indicative of the quality of the entire evening. So this is a solo. I don't know what the track is, but it's on his Telecaster, so check this out. He played one other guitar through the evening. It's called a Gristle 90, which is a Telecaster shaped guitar in it, but it's got two P90s on it, and it's got a Bigsby trem on it. But he had this one set up in open tuning. I don't know if he had the Action higher, but he had it set up for open tuning. He did a couple of slide tunes on, one of which is on his latest album. It's called Lowell-esque, which I assume is a nod to Lowell George, who's one of my favourite players as well. So yeah, I did a little clip of this. I really like the chord progression in the verse, which I don't think I managed to catch because this was kept happening. I'm watching it going, oh, I'm really enjoying this. I thought, oh, I need to be videoing this, so I got the video out and camera out and videoed bits, but I'd normally miss the bit that I wanted to actually film. Anyway, here's a little bit of him doing some slide. So let's move on to the amplifiers. Now, he had two amps on stage. He had two Tone King amplifiers. He had a Tone King Imperial, which is the kind of deluxe type thing, which he wasn't using, which he takes with him as a spare, and I think he said he might use that one if it's a smaller room where he can play quietly, which he certainly wasn't last night. But the one he was playing through for the whole show was a Marshall voiced one, which is called a, hang on, Royalist. Took me ages to find it on my notes. I wrote it down, and it's a kind of Marshall voiced combo, which doesn't have reverb on, which he said all his amps he's always had reverb on, but we shall move on to the effects in a minute. But anyway, so that's what he was playing through all evening, which takes us on to the effects, and he's got this new multi-effects box called the Koch Monster, which is an excellent name. This is like the big deluxe version, and it's not a digital pedal board like a lot of those multi-effects things. It's actually got the properly wired versions of the Jam pedals. It's made by Jam Pedals, and it's got the actual pedals all wired into it. It's not a digital thing. So I'm going to get my notes here and tell you exactly what it's got on it, because it's a good idea. I thought this is pretty good. I'm slightly interested in this, I have to say. So it's got a wah-wah pedal on, their signature wah. Then it goes into a Univibe stroke vibrato pedal. I'm not telling you the names of these because I'm just telling you what they do. Then, well, I'm going to tell you the name of this one. Is the Gristle King, which is his signature drive pedal, which they were actually selling at the thing last night, and they'd sold out of on this tour. They were so popular. Then it goes into a fuzz. Then another overdrive with a sort of wet dry thing and a high gain section. Then a buffer booster volume pedal thing, which I think is like a clean boost. You can attach an expression pedal to use it as a volume pedal. And then a chorus and vibrato again. We already had a vibrato earlier, so I'm not quite sure, maybe it's a different type of thing. Then a harmonic tremolo, and then 2 delays, and this is what he's talking about. He's not got the reverb on the amp, so you've got a deluxe delay which does all the fancy stuff, the long delays, and then he's got one that's a kind of a simple one which he'll have as just a bit of slapback in place of the reverb. But it's a pretty cool unit, this thing. Check it out on the Jam Pedals website. But I do like the look of it. I only have 2 slight criticisms of it which put me off, but apparently you can maybe custom order these things. Is, as I said before, it's got 2 vibrato things, but it's got no phaser on it, and for me, I like to have a phaser for doing sort of funky stuff, or phaser flanger type thing. It'd be nice if it had that instead of the doubling up on the vibrato. And the second thing, and this is actually for me, I'd say a bit of a showstopper, because I've never had a pedal board that hasn't got this. It doesn't seem to have a built-in tuner, which is a bit weird, and I wonder why he was using one of those clip-on tuners on the top of the guitar, which obviously didn't want to leave on there, he was taking off. But I'd love to have a tuner on my pedal board personally, rather than one of the headstock ones. But anyway, there we go. It sounded brilliant, and maybe the tuner might be an option if you custom build one. So enough nerding about the gear, let's talk about the show. It was brilliant. I mean, the Q&A was very entertaining. It was great to hear him speak. He did some lovely playing on his own. But the show was great. It was very loud. I had my earplugs in, luckily. My only criticism here, and this was, I was sat right at the front, it was a bit keyboard heavy where I was, because I had the bass amp and the Leslie cabinet pretty close to where I was, and I was kind of under the PA. It was kind of pointing further back, because the guy that I went with, he was sat near the back, and he said the balance was absolutely perfect. Unfortunately, where I was, the vocals were a little bit drowned out in places, and the guitar was a little bit drowned out in places, but not all the way through. In the middle of the show, the sound was absolutely perfect, but there were moments where it wasn't quite balanced, and I was struggling to hear the drums a little bit at times as well. And but that was just down to where I was sitting. Apparently at the back, the balance was absolutely perfect through the whole gig. So it's Greg's son on drums, who I saw standing in the foyer afterwards, who's as tall, if not taller, than his dad. And they're not small guys either, you know, sort of. And yeah, brilliant drummer. But the keyboard player, I must look his name up, hang on. Toby Lee Marshall, hence the Koch Marshall Trio, playing bass and keyboards, absolutely brilliant. And he sung at the end as well, which was great. I'll show you a bit of that in a minute. Not that you can hear it from where I was sitting, but he pulled the most brilliant faces, and I'm going to show you a clip of that now. What I liked about it as well, I was a little bit concerned after a couple of tracks that it was going to be all instrumental, because actually I really like listening to singers. That's my thing, actually. Although, you know, I play guitar and I do guitar solos, it's not my favourite thing. I like listening to singers. And Greg sung, and he's got a great voice, and he really puts the songs across well. So I was glad that he, you know, interspersed the brilliant guitar playing with some great singing as well. So I'm going to show you a clip of that. So it was a brilliant show, some great tracks. It was a sort of well-paced show. He certainly knows what he's doing, Greg, and I think it goes without saying, but his guitar playing is fantastic. I mean, I think about the sort of guitar players that I'd like to see live. I mean, most of my favourite ones aren't around anymore, and he plays in that way. It's interesting. Tony, who I went with, he went on the Monday as well, and he said it was very different, the set. It wasn't, there were songs that they did on both nights, but there was a variation in the set, and he said he played differently. It was, you know, there's lots of improvisation. It wasn't all worked out and it's the same every time, which is nice to hear, because sometimes you think, oh, I wonder how sort of choreographed the whole thing was, but I think it was all off the top of his head. You can tell that from his personality. When he's speaking, he's just riffing the whole time. And funny enough, he plays in a sort of similar way to I do, which I found weird, because it's, I guess he seems to have sort of similar influences, like the Danny Gatton thing, so the kind of hybrid picking and the country influence and the blues influence. I mean, loads of people have got those things, but, you know, out of all the players I've ever seen, he's probably the most similar stylistically to I'd place myself, I guess. So it was really interesting to see it, and it was just exciting. Loads of little bits I kept watching, going, oh, how's he doing that? Oh, what's he doing then? Try to make a mental note, and then go, oh, I should have filmed that so I can work it out when I get home, which I didn't. But there's been a few bits I've been working on today, which was a bit of what I showed you at the beginning of the thing. But anyway, it was brilliant, and surprisingly enough, I saw several people that I knew there, which was great. And I'm going to mention them because I know at least some of them watch. Ben, I know, watches. He commented on my last week's video. Saw him there, and Bob, who he was there with. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, I went with Tony, who'd been on the Monday. I also saw James, who'd dragged along Chloe, who's a singer that might have been in one of my videos a few weeks ago, who I did a gig with over the summer. She got dragged along. You know, I always like it when you have the partner of the guitarist being taken along, but I'm sure she enjoyed it. She's a musician herself. And also I saw John there as well, who I thought he might be there, because I remember part of the reason I wanted to go is that he told me a long time ago that he'd seen Greg playing at a venue even closer to where I live, and I missed it that occasion. I didn't know he was on, so I was determined next time I saw that he was on that I wanted to see it. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. I definitely recommend that you go and see Greg and his trio if you get the opportunity. It was absolutely brilliant. I will go again next time he's over in the UK. So leave me a comment, hit like, hit subscribe if you want to. I bring out new videos 7 PM UK time every Friday, so I hope to see you next week.